we are at the point of the show that's became my favorite part of the show. It is our legacy series part of the show, where we go and recognize somebody who left a legacy right here in our communities. Today is a very special individual to me, a man that I had an opportunity to play for, a man that it's crazy that it's been 14 years now since he's been gone, but a man that left an impact on everybody that he touched. And that man for our legacy series today is Coach Keith Howard, who spent many years at Lincoln, also at Ragland, but you best know him as a Golden Bear. So as the Golden Bears get ready to kick off tonight, there's a man who had a vision, who loved that community, and we want to present to you the legacy series, Keith Howard. Welcome back. You can see that I am joined by Coach Chad Martin and also Buckethead. Chad, you had the opportunity to play for him, coach with him at Ragland, and then at Lincoln, and then also take over for him. What did Keith Howard mean to you?
There's so many things. Looking at that and reflecting back on all those memories just come flooding back. And you know, he gave my first chance, and to get to work with someone, to see somebody so passionate. His passion was, you know, I'll always say this, the one thing Keith always did was it was always faith, family, and then Lincoln High School, and then Lincoln football. He truly loved every kid at that school, regardless of their athlete, band member, a student. He loved everything that was Lincoln.
I know I got to coach. I had the privilege to coach with Chad and Coach Howard for a couple years, and you know, I remember when Keith called me and asked me, did I want to come down there, and I said absolutely. And one thing I'll always remember about Keith is he made you feel like family. And even though that was my first year coaching, he never treated me like it was my first year coaching. I mean, it was I was just as much a part of anything that went on as anything. And, you know, he didn't care. And you stated this, but it's so true. And it was actually on the video and people seen it. We couldn't really see it. But he didn't care. The first questions he asked his coaches that he was hiring was, are you a family man and do you love kids?
That's it.
And you know, so the event that happened when he died, the night he died, my wife was in the hospital sick. And I just I went to some of y'all's games but that game I didn't get to. And I remember I was coming home from the hospital. And Terry Roller, good dear friend to all of us, principal there at that time, called me and said, we just lost Keith. And I was driving down the road. My wife's in the hospital. And I had to pull over and I said, what'd you say? And he said, we just lost Keith. And the point that you made in the article that we took a lot of the quotes from was you were on the sideline. Keith handed you and said, they're yours. And you got headsets on coaching. And then all of a sudden you hear in the headset, he's gone. What went through your mind at that time, Chad?
I was numb for a second. I remember radio back up to, at that time, you know, I was defensive coordinator before that, so all I had was defensive headset. And so it was the offensive head, the guy in the box talking, and I said, what did he say? And they repeated it. And I remember I turned, I just looked in the crowd and looked at the team and thought, what am I going to do with all this? Because I knew how much Keith meant to the whole community. He was a football coach and he was all those things, but he truly embedded somebody the community all looked up to because he had such high standards. He did have love for everybody. And I just thought to myself, how am I going to let these 84 guys know that their head coach is no longer with us? You know, and a lot of people don't realize, but, you know, at this time also, his wife attended most games, but his daughter was not feeling well, and so his wife was with her in Anniston. And so I immediately went to Lisa and Lindsay. You know, it's just all those emotions, and it's like time just slowed down. And I thought, you know, I can't let these guys know now because it's so emotional. I still, you know, that's a vision that occasionally still pops into my head when I'm driving down the road. Because our conversation we had, you know, right before he got into the ambulance, I could tell something was off, but I had no idea it was that. So it was a tough night for everybody involved with Lincoln and Lincoln High School.
Well, one of the things that I know, Keith always wanted Lincoln to have the best of everything. And we pushed while we were there, and he was the forerunner on this to get every dime he could get to do what you can see in the picture here behind us. People say he didn't get to see it finished. And it is sad that he didn't get to walk on that field finished.
Yes.
But he sees it. He
Yes.
sees it every day. He's as much a part of Keith Howard Memorial Stadium as that turf is on the ground out there.
Yes. A lot of people, you know, if they're newer to the Lincoln community, you may not even understand. Everything we have is because of Keith's drive and push to get all this built, because a lot of people don't realize this. Us as coaches, the indoor complex they have now, us along with, at the time, Mr. Neil Phillips, who, you know, helped lay the block.
Oh, yeah.
We did a lot of the work. You know, it wasn't an outside company who came in and did it. So us as coaches
Couldn't even do that anymore.
No, us as coaches built. We played a lot of those blocks. I was up there, me and some other assistant coaches, on top of that wall, pouring concrete down into those walls before they got finished. So
that was the year that I left, the year that we were building that. And I remember my baseball team everybody that was involved in Lincoln Athletics was selling everything they could sell to build that building.
100%.
We were selling cornerstones and things like that. And I just remember doing that in bricks. And
Yes.
it was a fun time to be a Golden Bear. It still is.
Yes.
I just hope I know they do, because I know how they feel about Keith. Because Keith was Lincoln, and he'll never be forgotten.
Keith is Lincoln.
Yeah.
Like when I think about Lincoln High School, I think about Keith Howard. Not just because of the way he treated me when I was down there, not just from getting to see him from behind the scenes because you were a coach. So I got to see him in a different light than even some of the other players, but knowing what he did to make all that happen. Like if Keith Howard would have, if he was still alive, he would be a politician because he could go out.
He was a politician.
He could go out and raise money as good as anybody I've ever seen, but it was because of the relationships that he built. He was a guy that always built relationships, and I think that's the reason why you get choked up and you still think about him all the time 14 years later. That's the reason you got choked up, is because he was all about relationships. And we talk about it all the time in coaching. If you build relationships, then you can coach people as hard as you want to coach them. But you have to build relationships, and that's where some of these coaches that are coming along now, they don't build the relationships. So I think Keith Howard was unbelievable at that.
And a lot of people, and now I can share stuff he would never have wanted you to know, but he always kept money in his top desk drawer, because anytime a kid needed it for anything, Keith would take it out of his own pocket. Keith would raise money, but he never wanted money for himself. If you know, Keith didn't spend on himself, but he would give you and give athletes. I know that I've seen him personally hand over $200 out of his own wallet after we went to the bank for a kid to be able to go and attend a camp because their parents could not afford it.
Yeah.
And nobody would ever know, and he would never let you say anything about it. And so just those things that you have no idea. We fed the players a lot. At the time, you know, when we first went to Nike, a lot of people, you know, when we became a Nike school, because before that we were not. You know, there's other stories that I cannot share, but we're not a school. But he went to Nike. He said he one of those kids at Lincoln who may not have had some of those things to have the best clothing out there. And so everything we did was really about the kids.
Yeah, because he could care less what he wore.
He could care less.
No, he could care less. As long as we could go to the Waffle House and eat, that's all he cared about.
We went to Waffle House now. We're at Waffle House at least.
They owe him some money.
Oh, yeah. We'd walk in and they'd start cooking orders. We went so often.
That's crazy.
You know, and it's just, you know, and the thing was, what Keith meant to me is just watching how he cared for people. And he cared for everybody. I think what amazed me more than anything was seeing that when we got to the new school, we built the indoor complex. And people do not know this who are not in the program, and I don't know how many people that are in the program knew this. The reason the girls worked out is because Keith said he wanted the girls to have the same opportunities that our guys did. So he had the weight class created to make sure that every girl athlete had a weight class just like every guy did. And back then, when we did that, when he got that implemented, that was not very common throughout the state. So that just shows you how much he cared about.
He was a visionary.
Yes.
I mean, that's the stadium's a vision of his. And here's another thing. Keith wanted the best of the best for his kids.
Yes.
And here, people probably don't even remember this, but once the indoor facility was built, if you probably remember this, Oxford actually went down and practiced in that indoor facility because they didn't have that kind of facility.
Actually, for 3 or 4 years, they would come down and use the facility and run on the track. Because we were, I think, maybe the first turf field in the state of Alabama for a high school. And Keith, the pleasure it gave him for Lincoln to have something so nice, how proud it made him. You know, it was just, where you see the turf at now, the funny story, it wasn't funny at the time when I was coaching and doing this work, but he had all of us coaches. We went down to the old football field, and they got the turf. We cut the turf up.
I remember that.
And we rolled it all up, and we were going to turf the field, the new field with the old field turf.
But that was Keith wanting to say, I mean, that was the best way we could do it. We did it. I mean, we went down and did that.
We worked for 2 weeks, and we got just the sidelines. And we finally said,
can't do it, Coach.
We're going to die, and we can't have any time to coach kids because we are laying inside every day, 10 hours a day. But, you know, it's just the memories. You know, if you look and you see what a softball field is, I'll never forget the first game we played was Talladega. We were going to play there. Well, they just dug the trench to put the cable down. So the Thursday night before we played on Friday, all of us coaches up there, shovels, we were filling in that trench for about 60 yards so we could play the next night. And so by the time that game's over Friday night, I'll never forget, I said, Coach Howard, I don't know if I can do any kind of coaching in the world. But I tell you I can do. I can build a building and lay cable, and do everything else it does with construction.
You wear a shovel out.
After coaching at Lincoln High School. And so, but those times, those memories, it built our relationships stronger and closer with each other. We had the best staff there. I can't say enough about the guys there. And you asked earlier about with Keith. When you look at that staff that was there, we had a great staff, but they were great men. And just all of us together lean on each other because it was not easy. And I just really appreciate what they did to help our community.
I like I said, I'd been gone a couple years when Keith passed, and it was a part of y'all were still a part of me. The kids, because of the way we loved on the kids, they were still a part of me. I wanted them the best for them, and it just crushed. I mean, like I said, it's one of them moments in history where you know exactly where you were at when you got that call. Well, I remember I was driving down Quintard and know exactly where I was at when I got the call.
And and all that, I have to say, I have to give kudos to my wife because at the time we had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old when all this happened and transpired. So me trying to deal with those emotions of all that, becoming the head coach week 1 of the season, and myself, I was young. I was just turned 32 years old. Dealing with all of that and the support that she was, but that's also one of those things that Keith always was about. It's always about family. So I just appreciate her for that time also.
Well, thanks for making me feel old. Because you had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old, and I taught the 2 older ones and coached the younger ones. So I appreciate you making me feel.
But I want to say this too. We're talking about Keith Howard, but there was another great, Lincoln great that passed just recently. We're talking about Hippo, Mike Turner,
100%.
and that was a diamond. That was Batman and Robin. They were a dynamic duo when they were together at Lincoln.
Yeah, and I'll say this. The stadium was built, all that you guys see now that we enjoy at Lincoln High School. And that's my alma mater too. So I'm so glad to see and the success that they're having. But all that was built on napkins at the Waffle House in Lincoln.
No doubt.
All this was sketched out and laid out. And so all this multi-million-dollar facility that we see here was on napkins at Waffle House in Lincoln.
Don't tell people that. The people at the board office right now in Talladega County, like their skin's crawling.
Well, it probably from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. is when it was done most nights because after football game.
Yeah, you didn't ever know what you knew after the game you was going there, but during the day, Keith just walked up. Didn't matter what time of day it was. Hey, let's go walk out.
Yeah,
didn't matter.
I'm gonna tell you the funny how much Keith does relationships, and and it's just embedded, and I guess embodies who he is. The job at Lincoln, I was not even applying for a job at Lincoln. I was still at Raglan. I was sitting in PE class, and I see Coach Howard walk in the door. I'm like, what? This is like 10 o'clock in the middle of the day. I'm like, what are you doing? He said, you're coming to Lincoln next year. I said, Coach, I don't think there's even a job open. He's like, yes, sir. So he brought me an application. I filled it out right there in the bleachers, and that's just how he did things. I mean, he went after and wanted what's best for everybody, but he always took care of me and my family, and I can't thank him enough.
There wasn't a spot he made it.
The man could get more things
right.
to happen. He really and truly, because everybody knew he had a good heart. Mm-hmm. And they knew that what he was doing was going to be best for kids and for the community. And so a lot of times things happen because he was relentless in making sure that it happened.
Yep. Great interview right there with Coach Chad Martin.
It brought back so many memories, and it was a great interview. Keith Howard meant so much to so many people. And here's what we'll ask you. We're going to post the video again on our Facebook page, just the Keith Howard video. But we'd love for you to come on and tell us what Keith Howard means to you.
Yeah, no doubt
on our Facebook page.
No doubt about it.